long have you been married?
I knew this question was
Say
gonna
it.
ask.
Okay, not
People.
sexualist. Okay. Cut that out. I would definitely credit you for being the one who's pushed me to be the person I am today. Right?
Yeah.
Where are the tissues? Okay, welcome back to Esther's Table. I am Chelsea, and I am so excited because today we're flipping it on Melissa, and we have Melissa and Nick here. So welcome,
Yay.
welcome.
I feel welcome.
You know, we were originally, when we thought of this idea, we wanted it to be both couples, and I'm so excited that it kind of worked out in the Lord's way and not our way, because I think it's more intentional, and we are in such different seasons that
Right.
when I sat thinking of questions, I'm like, oh, I have so many questions that are really cool for even me to hear. You know,
Yeah.
even where my season or where my marriage is at or where things are. So I thought it was opportune that the Lord made sure that we could not do it at the same time, and it always works out for good. But I'm excited. How are you feeling, Nick, being on here officially?
I think I feel every emotion. I don't know if I'm supposed to look at you or the camera or this camera, so that's the first thing. I was thinking about during it. I was trying to see what Melissa was doing, but yeah, it's just a sense of I'm probably more excited than nervous or anything like that. Like, I'm just, part of the cool kids club now, and I'm at the adults table. So we'll see. Hopefully, it's a great episode.
Well, perfect. I think it will be, because I
know it will
know
be.
your hearts are just, have so much to share and pour into others, and I know you're not afraid of my questions.
Oh, not at all.
Okay, so I'm gonna get going, if that's cool with you guys. So
Yeah.
Nick,
Nobody told me where to look, by the way.
just look at me. You're
Okay,
good.
okay.
He's like,
I just picture I'm gonna be
You
on
can look
this.
at me while I ask
and
a question, and then you can just look in Melissa's eyes and all the
dreamy.
love. Okay,
lost in her
so
eyes.
I just figured, because Lawson was on prior, we didn't really have to introduce him. Why don't you just kind of give like a little bit of like who you are, where you're from, in terms of your life. Just like a little, not elevator pitch, because that's a little short, but I just want to give you a room to just talk about who you are a little bit so people can get to know you.
Who
But
am
despite
I?
Melissa, just Nick.
Let's see. My name is Nick, and I am the husband to Melissa. And I grew up here in Palm Beach County. I have lived here my entire life, never left, and I take pride in that. I love that. Grew up in Lake Worth. We live in. Should I not say where we live?
Yeah, you don't need to.
people.
You don't need to give the addresses.
All right, my social security number is.
oh my gosh. Here we go.
But yeah, I'm an only child, and that's why I think I love in our family now that I have 3 sisters and 3 brothers, and that's cool. And we have 3 kids, and life is amazing.
Good.
Anything else you want to know?
What do you do for what's your story of what do you do for work? What you've done for work?
All right, that's a
I
good question.
I think it's important to understand.
Went to college.
dynamics.
I went to college. Didn't really know what I was going to do. Just I started college and I was going to be a lawyer. And then after the first week, I was like, this is too much work. I'm not doing this. So shout out to all you lawyers out there. And it's just funny to see how God kind of had his hand on me the whole time. I was going to go to a different college. Right at the last minute, God kind of veered me off to the college I went to. And obviously, I can look back, and that's when I met Melissa. So that was the best decision I made. And I didn't know what I was going to do. I had no plans after college, and it was probably February, and I was graduating in May, had no plans, kind of didn't even think about it. And then all of a sudden, I had a friend who became a firefighter, and so I went through all the schooling and everything, became a paramedic, became a firefighter, worked as a firefighter for a little while, became a nurse. And then I felt like I was a firefighter for a little over 15 years, and I felt like God was calling me out of that. And during that time, we owned a business together. We owned a gym, and I stepped out in faith out of the fire department, and we ran the gym for a few more years. And then about a year ago, God called us out of that and kind of brought an opportunity, and we stepped out of that, and now we are just free for the next thing, open to what God's plan is. I've been loving... my prayer's always been, I've always loved being a dad, and I've always loved being there for everything. And that's kind of what the fire department doesn't offer is, the time. I mean, there's a lot of freedom, but, sometimes I had to miss Christmas or birthdays or events because of the schedule. And now I get to coach my kids, sports teams, and I get to be at every event and everything for school and do stuff like this. And that's honestly what I'm most thankful for.
Yeah, I wanted to share that because I do think it plays a part of like your story
Oh,
and
yeah.
your marriage, and kids. It's a lot.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think a lot of people understand. I know a lot of people do who are in first responders and know that lifestyle, but it does make a huge, roles different, things like that. So I had some questions. I wanted to go into that, but I wanted people to make sure they knew that.
Oh, yeah.
So how did you guys meet exactly? Should I?
No, I'll start.
You can
Will
do
you?
it, babe.
Yeah, I'll start, and then you can add your version of it.
Fine.
I
do the
played,
same.
No, it's fine.
I played basketball at the college we went to, and my teammate we had summer conditioning, and so we had to get there earlier. We got done with practice and we would always go to the beach. That's what everyone did there. So we went to the beach, and when we were there was a guy that she was interested in. And she was like, "Oh, this is great. Come talk to their group of friends." And Nick was in that group of friends.
I was the guy. I don't know, maybe not.
Melissa
No,
Perry,
you were.
you
No, you were
dog.
interested. So, or she was interested in you. And so, but at the same time, there was like a group of them. And I immediately noticed this guy, and Nick Perry. And I was like, this guy.
Not in a good way. You didn't
is
notice me in a good way.
Obnoxious.
Okay.
He is loud. What the
Outgoing.
heck? I was like,
Charismatic,
He called
maybe?
me
Lovable.
out on like two things, like right away, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, you jerk!" And I just thought, "Who is this guy?" And
Your future husband.
my friend was like, "Oh, he's so great. You'll love him. He's so fun."
True.
He immediately invited us to a party that night, and she was like, "Let's go. We have to go." And I thought to myself, like, "There's no chance I'm going." And in the end, we went
Oh, I remember all this
at
now.
9 p.m.
If any of you have gone to college before, you know the times that college things happen. I walk into this party at like 11. I'll give her some grace. It was probably like 10:30, and she's walking out, and I was like, "Where are you going?" She's like, "Oh, I'm going home, going to bed." I'm like, "It's 11 o'clock. What are you doing? We're just getting the night started."
Yeah, he did. He literally called me out again. I'm like,
Yeah.
Oh, so you've always been this way.
I have always been this
I
way.
thought there was
I'm
like
shocked
maybe
she
a
was up till
glimpse.
10:30.
Now looking back,
I do
yes.
go to bed early. But no, so we were like, this is like, we're out. This is boring. We've had enough. And we left. And I think she stayed. I don't remember. But anyway, so I see him in that interaction. So then the next weekend was the same kind of deal. We go to the beach, and I was after practice and all the things. And this time everybody was starting to get back into school that weekend.
Yeah.
And so he was there, and he was skimboarding and with all his little friends. I was like, he's kind of cute, but he's obnoxious. There's no chance. So he came over to us, and he was like, "So don't be such lame-os. How about you actually stay for a party? Come tonight, another party. Here you are." And so
Unless I have to go at sundown to meet you, I'll do it. If I have to go out to the happy hour party, I'll do it.
Yeah, so my roommate of the time was there, and she was like, "We are going. We got invited. We're going." And I was
You guys
like,
were nerds?
I don't think so.
Oh.
But
If you have the question. Okay.
so we go.
Awkward.
She was so excited to be there. We
So
had so
sweet.
much fun. And I didn't drink in college at all. And she was one to drink, but like had fun no matter what. She was just like, "Let's dance the night away." And it was just, she was so much fun. And he came up to me at the party, and he was like, "Give me your number." And I was like,
Okay.
"No."
Okay. There might have been some more nuance to that.
Okay, there is more
Randomly
there.
walks up to
talking.
you. Give me your number.
Yeah, there is talking,
girl.
all of a sudden. But in the end, it was, "Give me your number," and I said no.
Yeah, that's true.
And then my roommate was like, "Here's her number."
But we were like sitting down on a couch outside, and you kind of like leaned forward or whatever, and then I was like, "Give me your number," and then she gave me your number.
Yeah, and that night, the next day, she said, "You're gonna marry him," and I was like, "Okay."
Boom.
And then
welcome.
he started calling me, and we started talking. We started hanging out. We went on a real date.
Well, what reeled you in? Remember?
Oh yeah. So,
yeah.
but as we were connecting and like hanging out, I was like, literally one day, should I actually say this? Okay, well,
I don't know what you're about to say.
I'm so
wait.
excited for my question.
okay, so we were playing basketball.
Oh, no, not even that
I
part.
know, but we
No,
were like,
before that.
I know, but this was the key point that then reeled me into the next piece.
No, I got reeled in. I reeled you in earlier than that. I
How?
invited you to the beach that week or whatever. I said, hey, we're all gonna go to the beach on Saturday. You wanna go to the beach? Yeah, that sounds great. Okay, cool. And I don't know, let's say we were supposed to meet at 1 o'clock. And 1 o'clock rolls around, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, yeah, I
and
didn't show.
This is like, she didn't show up. And this is like barely cell phones. Like when all phones did is made phone calls and played Snake. And I think I left it in my car. And I went back finally and grabbed my phone and I called you and I was like, hey, where are you? And I kind of was like, all right, like whatever. And you were like, oh, I'm with a friend right now. He's going through like a really hard time, you know?
His mom died.
Yeah, his mom passed away like that day. And I was like, of course don't come to the beach. Like, why would you come to the beach? Be with your friend. Like, that's way more important. And that sealed the deal, fellas.
Did it?
Yes.
I don't think so. I think this is what sealed the deal. You started then like opening your heart up.
Yeah.
And we had the very similar stories of how we grew up,
Yeah.
except
True.
his version was different versus mine.
Yeah.
And yet at the same time, nobody in my circles ever had those kind of stories. Everyone had their parents had great marriages and their kids were like, you know, able to like go to college for free because their parents paid for everything. And our stories were so different. It was like we had to do the thing for us in order to change the trajectory of our lives.
Yeah.
And I could see that in him. And one of the things I always loved is like I saw his real heart early and not the fake version that I was like, yeah, that's great, but like, who are you? And he gave me who he was immediately. So I thought that part of it was like, okay, seal the deal. Then we played basketball.
Well, and okay, sure, yeah.
And I was like, if he sucks, I'm sorry, but
Wow.
Dominated her.
And he dominated.
Yes, thank you.
So in
Thank
the
you for
end,
saying that
it
on
was like a seal
camera.
On
deal
record. It's
all
on record,
around.
guys.
And
But
then we
say the
dated.
other part.
Oh yeah. So then I thought I heard all these stories and all these warnings about him and about how not to
Awesome he is.
get involved with him because
Okay, those are called haters.
because of his sexual list. Of
Okay, that's
people.
sexual list. Okay, cut that out.
Okay. It's true. His list was long and everyone was like, hey.
You're in a safe place. Don't worry.
Yeah. I was like,
This
listen.
is
safe-
before I really knew the Lord.
No,
in
no,
this
I
way.
know. I'm gonna
And
tell you
I'll
right
share,
now,
I'll share some of that. Actually,
You're not. I have a question that will you can have an opportunity to bring it up if you would like to, but you're in a safe place.
No,
I did
I
episode
worry
1.
about that.
I told my life, so
Yeah.
you're in a safe
I'm not
place.
Worried.
So
I'm not
tell-
worried about that. I will talk about that.
Yeah.
Of like how
Tell
there's
me.
certain things I just didn't know, and
Yeah.
we'll talk about
Oh,
that.
I got a question. Don't
So
worry, you got
that
it.
all that to say, I was like, listen, he goes, if I win, I get whatever I want.
No.
Or no, what was it?
I
A
said,
kiss?
how about this? If I win, you have to give me a kiss. But if you win, I have to give you a kiss. And you're like, okay, deal.
But
And
I was like,
then-
oh my gosh, he's gonna think he probably
yeah,
wants
okay,
sex. And
yeah,
I was like,
okay,
a
that's
virgin.
not-
And I'm
okay.
like, no, I don't want that. I've heard all these stories, all these things.
So I dominate her.
Yeah,
yes.
and I was like-
and then she's like, I don't want to kiss yet. I want to hold off. And I knew right then, I'll marry you.
Yeah.
For sure, for real.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I mean, if, I don't know, that was like an immediate almost turn off. Like if somebody was willing to like kiss immediately or didn't get to know him, it was just like, all right, well, I'll never date this person. And when you like kind of played hard to get, so to speak, I was like, oh man, this is my lady for sure. And then what was cool is, we had met in like August, and then like we said, going back to school, met then, and you had said, and we got to know each other. We got to know like, things about each other's lives, and you had said, like, let's do the 40 Days of Purpose. Is that the song or the
Oh,
the
yeah,
book?
yeah.
It was like before we date, like
Purpose-driven life?
Purpose-driven life.
That's what it
Purpose-driven
was.
life. Yeah.
Rick Warren.
I wanted. Yep, exactly. Shout out Rick. And it was like, let's do this for the next 40 days, and then we'll see if we want to date, kind of thing. So we used to get together every single day or every single night, go to different places around the town or down around the city or whatever, and just do this book together. And it was amazing. I mean, that was like the first time that I'd really ever done anything like that or been exposed to anything like that. And I mean, I could see, obviously looking back, but even then, I mean, the relationship that you had with Jesus that I didn't know, and I'll share more about that later. But I didn't know certain things, so it was cool just because like our relationship was founded on the Lord from that get go, and then when we finished, we went steady, and you started wearing my Letterman jacket and my class ring, and that's it.
Well, that's a perfect segue because my next question was, where were you, or what was your idea of God when you were starting this relationship?
That's a good question.
Go there.
No, I mean, there's nothing. I'm just trying to think of where to start. I always went to Christian school, and Melissa and I have talked about this. Like, I'm the first generation Christian in my family. My grandparents weren't Christians. My parents weren't Christians growing up, and my parents got divorced from an early age where I don't really remember it. I had a relationship with my dad. Everything was great. And then he kind of left when I was, I don't know, maybe early teens. And we kind of still had a relationship. We talked, and then it kind of slowly faded. And then I never talked to him after maybe I was 15 years old, and that was it. And then he passed away years ago. But I never talked to him after I was like 15. And my mom's always known the Lord, and she's a believer now, but my mom's always known the Lord, but we never really went to church a ton. And, I remember like we'd get in the car, and the car would be, wouldn't start or whatever. She's like, hey, let's like say a prayer and get the car to start. So she kind of always had that, and she kind of always showed me that from an early age. I remember early memories like that. But I'm the first generation Christian, and I remember, and she always sent me to private school my whole life, sent me to Christian school. I remember asking her, like, why did you do that? Why not save the money and send me to public school? And she just said, like, I always felt like I wanted you to be surrounded by that and all that kind of stuff. And so I went to private school my whole life, went to Christian school. And you want me to like keep going, like testimony type thing?
Oh, I want to know where your heart was. Like, what did you believe in God when you met Melissa?
Yeah,
because you just already said that Melissa had a different relationship.
Yeah, so
it's like, I just want to know who you were.
So honestly, like I would say, like, looking back now, I don't even. It wasn't that I didn't have a relationship with God. I can see everywhere God's fingerprints on my life. I could see everywhere that God guided me. Things that just, and people would say, oh, you have a guardian angel on your shoulder. Someone's looking out for you. I'm like, oh yeah, cool. All right, whatever. So I kind of started like going through life of like, well, this will work out. Like, which I think has benefited me. Like, and it wasn't like a flippant way. Like if you're running late for an airport and people are stressed, or an airplane and people are stressed, and I'm like, it'll work out. And I still am like that. I'm like, it'll be fine. Because it's like, I know God's guiding us. And now I'm like, all right, God, like just hold the plane for us or whatever. And it always worked out. And I don't think I had a relationship with Jesus when I was young. Even though I went to Christian school, had Bible class, learned all the Bible stories, all that, there were certain things that I did not know, and I was not taught by the school or the parents or whatever, just of certain things of Christianity. I just didn't know. And I'll be honest, like I remember when I went to college, and I remember talking to some girls. I don't even know who these girls are now, but I remember talking to these girls, and they're like, oh, I'm saving myself for marriage. And I'm like, what is that? What do you mean? I had never heard that in my entire life. I didn't even know that was a real thing. And, ignorance isn't an excuse, but I had no idea what that was. So it was that kind of thing of like my relationship with Jesus. Like, I know God always kind of guided me, but it was always like super, super back burner. I went to church while I was in, college, but then once I met Melissa, then everything really took off. And I mean, I would definitely credit you for being the one who's pushed me to be the person I am today. Right?
Yeah.
Where are the tissues? No, that was really good.
Yeah.
I love to hear it because, I knew you starting at a ripe old age of 11.
I was going to say that. That's like the funny thing is now like seeing all of our sisters as women, which is weird because, when I came around, you guys were like 11, 13, and 15.
Like I wasn't even a teenager yet.
I remember all that. And it's just so cool. Like I love those memories.
I got good photos.
But it's just so cool. I mean, it's just so different than someone else coming in and like, I mean, I think, when Lawson came in our lives, we already had our kids and we were married. And so he just came into that scenario. But I remember you guys as just little girls and, middle schoolers or, homecoming court and stuff like that, or high school football games, and it's just
you really
fun
went
memory
through
for
a lot
me.
of those things.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I mean about me being an only child is like, and now I get to have like 6 siblings that when I refer to people, I'm like, oh yeah, my sister went to the gym this morning. People are like, I thought you're an only child. I was like, well, my sister-in-law, but you know what I'm saying? Like, whatever. And because I mean, I was there from such an early age. It was just cool. I love that.
That's really cool. Well, Melissa, what did you see in him spiritually when you were starting to date that you were like, what did God tell you to keep pursuing that? Because like, you know, you are in an environment, and I know what school you went to, but it was also a Christian school, college. And so you're in an environment of, I would say, some legalism when it comes to dating. And if you read the scripture, it's definitely, that's not how Jesus played the game of loving people. How did you see past what anyone would say or what might have not be there to see past that, to be like, no, God has chosen this person to be spiritually in my life too?
I don't know if there was anything at that time that I would have said like, oh, God told me this, because I don't know if I had true ears to hear the way I do now, but it was just a feeling. It was just a knowing. It was more of like, I see the good in him. I see what nobody else sees. And I was a people pleaser. So in the people pleasing, I should have been like, oh yeah, I'm not going to date you because of that. But that almost like fueled me in a way that I was like, no, you have no idea who he is. And I guess it was that that's just how I saw him. I just saw him as this guy who was always willing to serve others. He was so encouraging. He could have done different things, or he would have been controlling, and he never has ever been controlling. You like, let me be me. And I always appreciated that. And so you were similar to my dad in some ways, but the things...
in a lot of ways, in the good ways, a lot of ways.
In a lot of great ways.
We were very similar.
Yeah,
in
like
the good ways.
bold, like
Yes.
was not afraid to tell you honest truth, which I admire. I lean into people who are like that. And there was just certain things about his sensitivity and his emotional understanding, even though my dad was emotional and he is emotional, the way it was communicated was different. It was like he communicated, and it might have looked, you know, in that time different. I would always be like, no, let me try and like help soften this. Let's like go through this. Like, and still like sometimes that was like a battle for many, many years, but I don't think it was anything more than just refinement. It's pruning. It's all the things that like I saw his eagerness to actually know God and be willing to like share of those truths that I don't think you ever shared with anybody.
Yeah, and I think you said it. You saw something in me that people didn't see, you know, and it's like, I don't know, seeing like a diamond and, you know, whatever. When you polish it up, then it's a diamond. And, you know, and I remember, you know, when people would say certain things about me or whatever negatively, and you'd be like, that's not who he is, you know, and because maybe people didn't know the real me, or maybe I didn't let them in or whatever it was. But I remember, you know, going back to reading The Purpose-Driven Life, you know, and saying that our relationship was founded on the biblical type, you know, on the Bible, on biblical values. And I remember you saying like, kind of like, all right, well, like, if you want to date me, like, you're going to come to church with me. And I was like, okay, like, you know, yeah, okay. So we started going to church together, and we'd all go, I mean, you guys were young, we'd all go to church together and sit together. And it was cool. It was great, you know? And so it was cool that it was like from the jump, our relationship was founded on the Lord. And obviously our relationships grow as we get older, as we mature, as we learn. But that was like the starting point, I think, for me, and just really set me off on this path of where I am today.
Awesome. First off, I forgot to ask the question. How long have you been married?
I knew this question was
Say
going to
it.
ask. 17?
That was the question mark at the end.
17 years.
Final answer?
Yes. 2008.
She's doing the math.
2008. You know what?
I didn't mean to put you on the
I
burner
just
there.
No,
I
it's the
also
best.
not surprised.
No,
that
it's the best. Like she like, was it last? No, it was a few years ago. Well, it's been a couple times. It wasn't once. She would come to me and it would be like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. She'd be like, "Happy anniversary, by the way." And I'm like, "Huh?"
to him?
It's tomorrow. And then she's like, "Oh yeah." So she kind of forgets the day sometimes.
I'm not good with
Hey,
dates.
I'm good with numbers. I'll handle
He's
the
the better
numbers.
one.
How long did you date before that?
Like 100 years.
That's why it feels like,
4?
yeah, it was like 4
So
or 5,
it was
right?
my the summer in between my freshman and sophomore year that we met.
Okay.
He
Yeah.
was a fifth year senior.
Okay. Okay.
Fifth or sixth, I don't know.
We call that the frat lap, like the glory lap in UCF.
Well, I had gone, the summer that we met was when I started EMT school. So you were there from the get-go of that. And then, so I did EMT school, I did fire school. I had to go back to college. I had to finish like 3 classes that I was short. So we were dating at that time. So we got to take a class together, which was cool. I needed an elective, and for her major, we just did one together. That was great. And I did those, and then, you know, the next year I did paramedic school and all that kind of stuff and became a firefighter.
We dated for like 4 years,
Yeah, we dated for...
broke up for 6 months, and then we got back together and got engaged somewhat right away.
And we were like still friends during it. I mean, you know, it wasn't like okay.
No, we were not friends.
It wasn't like 6
We
months we
hung
didn't
out with
talk
the
to each
same
other
group
and
of
ran
friends.
into
We were
each
on a
other.
We were on a break.
We were on a break.
So,
yeah.
do you want to speak into that about like any time off? Like, why was it something that, or is that no?
I mean, I think it's, you know, like on a surface level, I think it's something that, you know, personally, I mean, I can only speak for myself, but like, you know, I was making bad decisions, and, you know, and I think, I don't know, I call it like, and I'm not making an excuse, but I call it like a quarter life crisis. Like I was like 25, I just gotten hired at the fire department, and I felt like, and I knew we were going to get married. I knew we were going down that path. We'd already been dating for like 3 years at that point. And I remember thinking like, I can't just move somewhere if I want to move. I've never moved in my life, but I couldn't move now. And I felt like boxed in.
Yeah.
So then I honestly just like started like acting out like a child and making bad decisions. And to the point where she was like, look, I'm not going to stand for this. So we broke up. And, you know, and honestly, it grew us stronger. We were still friends. We hung out together. Yes, for a few months, maybe it was bad, but then we really worked on it, almost worked on like the friendship. I had to regain your trust. And then I remember writing my journal, and I'll find that journal. I remember I was writing in my journal, even back then, like, I'm going to propose. Like, we got back together. I remember the night we got back together, and then I was like, I'm going to propose, and this is how I'm going to do it, and this is where I'm going to do it. And I did. Like, probably 4 months later, maybe 5 months later, we got engaged for a year and got married, and here we are.
So you've been together literally a million years.
Yep.
You know, that happened
started-
to us too. We didn't break up officially, but I got to a point where it was just something happened. It was, again, a personal like kind of thing where he was starting to feel the pressure, and I felt the feeling,
Pushback,
the pushback.
yeah.
And I was like, I went my whole life with this. I'm not doing this anymore.
That was exactly right.
You either love me the way you want to love me, like the right way, or we have to
Yeah.
stop. But it's up to you. And I was like, waiting for it. We never talked about that last week, but that was like a pivot in our whole entire relationship was that moment. It was like 10 months into our relationship.
Yeah.
So it was a little earlier, but it was a very significant, he had a lot more career things going on, and it just, I mean, he can only speak about it for himself in that way, but I had a conversation the same way. So I do think it is common where people go through life and you kind of have all these things kind of lining up, and there's a lot of pressure to then be like, and I want to segue into kind of personal background things that to how these things can come into marriage.
Yeah.
So one of the questions I was thinking of was, what are some things that you each battled with, like growing up, and that brought into marriage? And how did you recognize those things, and what did you do to do that? And I made a list of ideas of like kind of the concept is like betrayal, abandonment, rejection, insecurities. Like a lot of the times when you're dating, it's a lot more nicer. And then when you start moving in and living under the same roof, a lot of those things can't be hidden anymore. They come out.
Yeah.
So maybe if you wanted to start, Nick, or Melissa, whatever.
I mean, whatever.
You want to start.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think everyone's stories are different. I think breaks are good for some people, and shout out to the people who get married at 20 and they have an amazing marriage. You know, I just think everyone's story is written differently. I think going into marriage, you know, for me, again, being an only child, never had to share a room with somebody. As I had roommates, I had the same roommates for 7 years. Shout out to those guys. You know who you are. If you happen to be watching, if you happen to somehow be watching this. But yeah, we were roommates for 7 years, but we never shared a room. We always had different rooms. And I remember even just something as simple as like, you know, having to share a bed or share a room together with somebody. I was like, that was new for me, you know? And I remember, I don't know, watching a football game or a basketball game one night, and you're like, all right, ready to go to bed? I'm like, no. She's like, well, I'm going to bed. It's time to go to bed. That's what married people do. I'm like, they do? No, I'm not doing that. And now she's to bed at sundown, and I keep on keeping on. But
I still make him come to bed with me.
But it suits us well.
We do the same exact thing.
It suits us well. But no, I remember one time, and I think certain things in your life are learned behaviors that you don't realize. It's just part of your upbringing, part of who you are. And we got in a fight. It was probably our first fight, and I just left the house, went for a drive, and was like, I'm just gonna go clear my head. I'm gonna calm down. In my mind, I'm like, I'm gonna remove myself from the situation. Probably wasn't this calm. It was like, I stormed out, but I just like left, went for a drive for like an hour, came back. And she's like, you can't do that. And I was like, what do you mean I can't do that? I was just calming down. I'm ready to talk now. And she's like, yeah, but you're running from the problem. And looking back, I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. Like, and I've never done that since. Like, I've never ever, thought to run. But I think that maybe something inside of me, some learned behavior over the years, was to run away from conflict or to, run away from a tough situation. And that was like early on in our marriage. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. And I think part of it, like just talking about marriage, I think in any marriage, obviously two are becoming one, and you always bring in whatever baggage you have, however old you are, whatever life experiences you've had or haven't had. And I just think that that's just something to navigate. Again, everyone's story is different. And I think that that's just what we had to navigate through.
Yeah. I think for me, there's two things that came to mind. One was the idea of not being able to have sex and then suddenly being able to have it.
Yeah.
And then in that first year or two.
And for the record, our entire 4.5 years that we were dating and engaged and everything, we never had sex.
Yeah.
Never did, so
Yeah.
I just
So
want
it's
that
like
out there. 'Cause
purity
you
to then
painted me to be a sex fiend in college.
And then all of a sudden.
I was not.
Then all of a sudden we live together, and it's like expected to be like, okay. And I had to really change that narrative. Like I had to think about, like, I loved it. It wasn't that, I would love the act of it, but I just didn't I didn't understand it. I thought it was an obligation. Mm-hmm. I thought it was, this is submission. This is what we do. This is how we can do it nicely. And you get this painted picture that suddenly it's okay, where I was feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm in trouble. Like I had to battle that, I think, for a year.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
That was like one thing that I was like, okay, wait, I'm okay. It's okay. It's allowed, and God wants this. But I didn't understand the beauty of it until later.
Yeah, that's true.
Once my security and confidence of like what this is made to be for me, just as much as it is for him, that was one thing. And then you're like battling also, like the second thing I would say is like me coming in from a standard of like crazy excellence of perfectionism, and then walking into like Nick was like very not routine. I wouldn't say routine. I would say cleanly, very detailed.
I love that about him.
I do too. Like organized, saw things as it should be, which I love. And then, but in it, could care less about what anyone else thought about him or about us. Mm-mm. And he would I just like would hear like, this is how we're supposed to be married. This is what we're supposed to do. And I would bring all the noise from outside standards of people's perfectionism and ideas into our marriage, which was just because that's all I had ever done growing up, is like, we have to look the part. We have to be this way. We have to do this stuff. And if we weren't, I would start doubting us. And you just kept always saying like, who cares? And in the end, no one cared, and except for me. And that was my battle, the way the lies were told, that I had to be this certain way in order to receive his love. And that wasn't the truth, but it took years to undo that. And honestly, I don't think it really became a thing, like fixed, I would say, until after kids and after this pruning season that he's taken us through.
Yeah.
So I think that now I'm like, I could care less. We know who we are, but it also allowed me to like see him for who God has made him to be, and him to see me as the same.
Yeah, and I think you are a self-proclaimed people pleaser, and I think as a people pleaser,
Not anymore.
I know, as a recovering
recovering people pleaser.
But as you who are a people pleaser, me who's like, I don't care what people think, and I really have never cared, like whatever it was, my appearance or what I did, I never cared, and probably to a fault for some point, but like whenever it's certain things like that, you couldn't see how I was so like that. You know, it's like somebody who gets anxiety for, you know, public speaking or for catching a flight, and you're like, oh, just calm down. Well, that doesn't help them. Like, and they don't see how you're so calm. And I know we couldn't see each other's point of view. And yeah, I think it took a while, but I think that's like the beauty of marriage. Is like, it's this journey that it's so funny to look back. I mean, we've been together now, even, you know, just we met over 22 years ago, you know, and just seeing the journey that we've been on, I've known you longer than I haven't now, which is wild. And I guess that's the same for you too. And I think that that's part of the journey, that you never really know what you're getting into. And it's just this path that God takes you on. And it's just a beautiful story.
Yeah, agreed.
That's nice. I like that. I think it's easy to, you know, have these, you know, things come up and trying to navigate them. So I wondered, my first initial thought was when you talked about you walking out, what did you feel about that?
Oh, mom.
Yeah.
Abandonment.
Right when you said it, I was like, abandonment.
I
would
know, you
literally
cannot
be
do
like,
that
you
to
can't
me.
ever do that. Yeah.
You can't. I know some people talk like in a way that it is helpful. I personally didn't see it as helpful. And so in our marriage, I just can't do that. Like, neither of us can just leave. Neither of us can okay, step away. Maybe go pray with the Lord now. Go get in your closet. Go be with the Lord, or go take a walk. But like, tell me you're going to go take a walk. I'm going to go lay it out before the Lord. Okay, go do that. But if you just get up and leave, that was
Triggering.
Oh, it was gut wrenching, and I was in tears, and I didn't feel like I could talk to anyone because, oh my gosh, I just married this guy. Now what? Like, did I just get
supposed
duped?
To be perfect, and everything's supposed to be easy.
Yeah, and I
in the
immediately
honeymoon
thought like,
phase.
oh my gosh, I got duped. There's no
Because
way.
when you grew up in a house that on the outside it looked like the way it did, on the inside it did not.
Yeah.
When you start seeing like, you know, things that could be like red flags because you're you're hyper vigilant when you had grown up in narcissism with two parents that were like that. And we had some things that happened, and I had to explain like the why, and why it hurt. And I was like, I know I have to understand people don't feel this way. And that's really hard too. Like you don't understand like that, maybe that feeling initially. So it's like, how do you communicate that in not high emotions to be like, hey, so this is why it actually hurts me when you walk out like that.
Yeah.
And then it's like you grow into where your guys are at, which is really cool. But I just wanted to touch on that because I do think a lot of people don't understand how to get to the other side of the bridge. They just feel that they sit in the hidden emotions, and then they might not have somebody to talk to, but you married the person to talk to. It's just how do you navigate those conversations? So I do think a lot of I always say you married someone that grew up completely different than you, period. It doesn't matter if it was a great home or not. They have their own things. So it's a journey of a life, the rest of life, figuring out what those things how they come out. So
Totally.
And I think you said it in there. I think one of the biggest things in anything in life, whether it's marriage or a job or whatever, is understanding the why. And I think if you can help somebody else, whoever it is, understand the why, then they're brought into that story. And, you know, when you share that with me of like, hey, this is kind of how I was raised, and we obviously knew that in marriage at that point, but like, this is why that upset me so much. And you're like, oh, okay, I see it. You know, and instead of just telling someone, well, that upset me. All right, well, that's what I'm going to do. But when you brought me into the why, it allowed me to see it from your point of view and say, all right, well, I can understand that, and I'll tweak my ways.
Yeah, that's good. That's healthy, and that's healthy. And I think it's you're going to have people who are single, engaged, you know, not even married or newly married, walking through things, and they just don't know how to navigate because of the same exact things that you just said, where you're like almost scared to say there's a problem, and it's not really a problem. It's just a communication thing of like working through that. So, do you have something else?
No.
Okay. So how do you protect your marriage?
I'll go. Well, my first thought is like immediately in prayer. I would say we armor up. We plead the blood of Jesus over our home, over our land, over our family by name. We like cover it. So that's like initially the idea first and foremost. Like I can't share that enough to say like that has always guarded us. I feel like we've always been in the Word in our marriage. It has grown and hearing the voice of the Lord has grown, and digging into who he is, and the heart posture of us has changed a lot. But the protection has always been there. And I think for Nick and I, we both knew what we never wanted and was able to see hands-on at an early age. Nope, don't want our family's stories. We don't want our family's marriages. We don't want our family's life. We knew we were made for more from an early start. And our intentionality, I think, was to communicate. And the good thing is that Nick's a great communicator. He is one to verbally process. And I didn't realize how much I needed that, because I grew up where you never communicate, and you are like quiet, and you just look the part, and you don't share your feelings, and you don't even know you have feelings. And so in the beauty of who God is, he knew that's the part I needed. I needed somebody who was understanding, and somebody who's able to just vent out all the things. And sometimes to a place I'm like, okay, Lord, I can't carry all this. What am I doing? But that was my job, to like not carry all of your words. Your words were just sometimes like I needed a sounding board, and you just wanted to share. And I had to learn to be like, okay, is that what you need? Yeah. And then if you needed wisdom or discernment, I was able to like pray into it and then be able to speak. But I've learned not to speak all the time, which has been part of that process of realizing those aren't always beneficial. And sometimes you got to figure it out with the Lord and not with me. So that was like one thing. And then the other thing I thought that is protective is we communicate, we pray, but we're really intentional with family. And I think that like it has been one of those learning experiences, you know, because it's easy for me to have just run and gone and done the things that I knew I was supposed to do, and you to do your things. And then all of a sudden the kids are kind of like mixed into the lifestyle. But like really your intentionality for the kids has always been there. And me learning to realize this is like sacred. This is us training them up. This is together. And just like you said, like you meet these two people. Yes, you date, and it's like bliss, I feel like. And then all of a sudden you get married, and you go through the first year, and then all of a sudden you're learning about each other as you're growing yourself. And the Lord has this beautiful way of like merging the two together. And now we're one. And I believe, like, yes, we were one in the beginning, but like, I believe we're one now, where you know who you are in the Lord, and I know who I am in the Lord. And together we're just following him because our eyes are so focused on him. That to me is the protection, is that he had to have his own journey. So I wasn't going to pray fervently into a point of just until I see it, I'm not going to stop. And he, in the last like even 3 years, I've seen that shift, and my prayers answered.
Yeah, and I think I don't want to say this in like a funny way or whatever, but honestly, I never had to pray for you. I just you always had that relationship with the Lord. You always sought the Lord, and I think you've been praying for me for so long to see the man who I am today that you knew I could become. You saw that in me, and that was always cool. And I think certain things for protection, the overarching thing that I would say, the high level view would be that we know whose we are and we know who we are. And I think that that's something that took a while to really, really fully understand. And we're probably still unraveling it and kind of opening the package. But I think when you are rooted in Christ and you know whose you are and who you are, then it just kind of just opens that up to protection of, we never used the word divorce or whatever, besides saying like, I knew even when we were dating, it's like, we will never get divorced. Like we just will never, it's never an option. And I know some people, they would use it as almost like when they were fighting, they would use it as a weapon to say, well, like if you keep this up, we're going to get a divorce. I'm like, that's weird. You shouldn't say that. We're never talking about that. But even like on a practical level, certain things, certain boundaries that we put in place, like we're never in the same car with an opposite sex alone. And we never are in a closed room with somebody alone or something, or even a text group. If I'm texting with a woman or something, a friend, even it'll be either the husband and wife and us together, or I'll put Melissa on the text, and even if it's nonsense, even if it's nothing, but I think that just creates protection. And our phones are always, we know passwords, and there's nothing secret, everything's out in the open, computers are unlocked, phones are left on the counter, check them out anytime you want, you're not going to see anything. And I think that that openness creates the intimacy, which creates protection for your marriage.
Yeah, when I remember you guys lived off down south, your first home. That was one of the things. I don't know how we got in that conversation, but you actually used to say we don't even speak the D word. That D word's not allowed to be spoken. And I was like, that's awesome. I never, I've always thought about that. That's always been in the back of my mind, that conversation, because it's so true how it's not even to the extent of maybe people saying like the divorce, but it's like so. There's always people knowing there's an out, and I just think there's nothing.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
You're dying with me or I'm dying. I say I'm first, who's going to die first? It has to be me, because I am not living on this earth without you, my friend. But no, that's really good. And this kind of leads into that. And how do the roles look like in your marriage? And have they always been that? I know with your job, there was times where, you were on your own 24-hour, 40-hour shifts, these long shifts, and you kind of had to take up, both. But what does that look like? What is that, you can go off on how you feel about that.
I mean, I would say, okay, so when we started dating, he was in EMT school. We get married, he's already in his career. So I knew through those years of my college years, there's so much independence it was more me. Like if he missed something, he missed something. And I just did my thing. I was always around people. And I grew up in a home where it was always people. Like, so I would live the same way. He lived with the same group of people. I lived with different groups of girls, but I would always have at least 3 or 4 girls in a house. And so then all of a sudden we get married, he leaves like that first night. And I remember freaking out. I was like, how am I going to do this? Like, I don't like to be alone. And the Lord adjusted me, but in the adjustment, it was really like this idea that I thought, okay, this is what I was prepared for. I can be independent. I can work. I can do my thing. I can get everything done. And then he would come home and we'd just hang out and play. And it was so much fun. And then we'd have kids. And it was like, I got the kids. I still work. I'll handle all like babysitters. And, I at that time was doing grocery shopping, and you were cooking. You're probably always were cooking, but
good call. Good call. We love you, Melissa.
Yeah.
She can cook.
You
can cook.
You worked into it.
I worked into it. I don't enjoy it.
Yeah.
He enjoys it. It's like his
I said last night, I was like, I could be a chef.
He loves it. It is his release of just time. And I will like hang with the kids and do all this stuff. But I think at that point I was like, okay, this is what I've been trained to do for so long and for years. I mean, we had 3 kids and he was working in the fire department and I was working and I had the house scheduled and we're good at home and babysitters in place and finances done. I was working another job, building my own company, running everything. And he would come in, he would cook, he would hang with the kids, we'd have our time, and he'd move on to his job so he could focus on work. And I thought it was great until I was burned out.
Okay, I was gonna say that sounds a lot.
It was a lot,
but that's
and
hard because it's not like you don't want to help. It's just that the job doesn't allow you to.
Right, and I think during that time, we've talked about this, is you felt like you had, I mean, there was times where obviously you were a single mother. Like, so you would go to birthday parties. Oh, where's your husband? Oh, he's on shift. And, it's fine. But it also at the end of the day is like you had to do all, and when the kids were little, 5, 3, and 1, or you had a newborn and a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, and you're doing bedtime and bath time, trying to feed them. And it's hard, and I've said this to other people. I've said this to you, but I've said this to other people is you are definitely the most capable person. I've told people like, she's the most capable person I know. Like, to the point where I can't think of a specific example, but I remember you know, maybe a hurricane was coming and I was on shift and they were like, well, what's your wife going to do? I'm like, she'll put up the shutters herself. Like, she can do it. Like, you can figure things out. You can do things. And it was almost to like a fault for my own, just be like, oh, she can do this. She can handle this. And then, you know, when you do get burned out, it's like, oh, okay, we need to. And I think we've always handled the roles of a mom and a dad, a husband and wife.
Yeah.
Like I was the provider, I was the protector, you were the nurturer, you know, and that kind of thing. And some blurred, you know, because you are very business driven. You ran businesses, built businesses, sold businesses. And I think, and that was awesome. And I admired that, but I think it also sort of blurred the lines. And then there's also some of those things like, again, like the cooking and stuff. I love that, you know, and I love serving the family, and I love being able to do that and to grocery shop, to take it off your plate. So I think there's certain things that, you know, maybe as quote unquote the standard woman's responsibility of cooking and cleaning and this, but I think we share in a lot of those things. And I think it, you know, just to kind of help each other. I mean, we're a team.
Right, yeah. And then once the burnout happened, it was probably close to when I was selling. And I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I could feel it, but then the Lord literally brought somebody in to sell the company to. And that first day, I was like, oh my gosh.
Now what?
What am I supposed to do? Like, all of what I knew my identity was in was rooted in what I've built or what I've been able to bring in or how I was able to like execute everything. And in the end, just stop is to actually feel. And that feeling of worthlessness like hit. But that it was exactly at the same time when the Lord was like showing up in new ways, and I was getting counseling, and I was going through all of that, like soon after, and realizing this is all normal. This is all part of the process. And it was, I mean, it did show me like, wow, I don't need to carry all this. And I did it out of insecurity and out of this idea, this lie that I was told to do this. And then once that freedom happened and the release of it, I was like, oh. But the hardest part, I think the Lord has been teaching me in our roles is he's really saying like everything next is like for him to learn to do. Stop getting in the way. And that's been a direct order, like stop doing the things. Don't pick it up. Don't carry it. I know, and we talked about this, like I know I could start any business and I will make it happen and I will find a way to make money through it. And I just believe God has given me the gift of that. However, that's building an empire. And the Lord's like, I didn't call you to do that. So if you're going to build it, it's going to be on you.
And you're going to build an altar.
Correct.
And we've talked about this, and I think God would probably even bless it, and it would be great. But God would be like, and we could say like, you know, a year from now, like, oh my gosh, God built this business with us, and it was amazing, and we built it into, you know, whatever, $1 million business. And God would say, don't put my name on that. I had $1 billion business, but you chose to grow $1 million business on your own. Like, don't put my name on that. I didn't have that for you. And I think that's been a difficult thing. I know this isn't part of the question, but I think that's been a difficult thing to kind of understand, of like just resting in the Lord and trusting God's plan is better and surrendering your own plan. And I think for me, I've learned multiple layers of surrender. I think there's surrender where you just give up. You're like, I'm done with this, whatever it is, you just surrender. Then there's a surrender of just giving up your plans and saying, okay, I really surrender. But I think there's a deeper level of like, I surrender everything of who I am to you, God, and whatever you want to do with me. There was times where I think I said that, and my mouth said that, but my heart didn't believe it, my brain didn't believe it. It was more just like, all right, I surrender, just do your thing, God. But I think there's multiple levels of surrender to the point where he's brought us now, where we're not fighting against the things that he's given us, and we're not, I think something that God has told me over the last year is just to rest and enjoy this time. And I fought against it for a long time. And I kind of caught myself one time and I was like, I'm fighting against the absolute thing that I've prayed for. Like I've asked God, like, I want to be a dad. I don't want to miss things. And I'm at every event. Like I said earlier, I'm at every practice or every game, and God's given me that. And I'm like asking for the thing that I don't want, which is, a job or to go back to that kind of mentality. But, that's been difficult, and we've learned through it.
Yeah, I think though it's because the enemy is sitting there like, oh,
Did God really say?
you're just able to go, what are you doing?
Yep.
You guys aren't working with jobs, like, because your whole life, that's all you've been doing.
Yeah.
And you've been doing it to a level past most people.
Yeah.
So it's almost like you filled your cup past the brim by emptying your cup of like in the world's view. But is that what God really told us to do?
Yeah.
And the being still is when we hear him.
Yeah.
And like you said, I'd rather be sitting there hearing him and walk in what he's doing, because it will be magnified in his glory and accelerated faster than I could ever. But I'm not going to be exhausted.
Yeah,
It sounded
exactly.
exhausting hearing it. And I could say the same thing about the things I've done. And it was exhausting.
Yep.
But sitting still, you're really saying, I'm not looking like the world, and the world's going to judge me.
Yeah.
But come at me, because my God told me to do this,
Yeah.
and that I fear him more than I fear you.
Yeah.
So I think that is powerful, and I do think that plays a role as a head of the household to you trickle down that emotion, those feelings, those beliefs into your wife, but also your children.
Yeah.
And how does that look like raising? You have older kids than us. Like, we don't have little kids. You have older. They're still in the house. And I don't want to give away like names or ages or anything like that specific, but you're raising kids that are now like people.
Oh my gosh.
They're not little kids anymore.
They are people.
They are able to make all the decisions you spoke about yourself.
Yeah.
And so what do you guys do to pour into them? What are things that you're navigating through that maybe some people are navigating through too?
I think that's a great question. I think there's so many things come to mind. I mean, our kids are just, man, people tell you, enjoy it. It's going to fly by. Yeah, right. I got a toddler and a newborn and can't wait till I'm out of these diaper stage. Oh, man, enjoy that diaper stage because it flies by. And our kids are amazing in all their own separate ways. And I think there is just times where, we've had to pour into them and try to, I think the biggest thing is knowing, again, going back to who we are and whose we are. And we've really instilled that with the kids, and whatever it is that they might be going through. And it's so cool to see like the relationship that we have with each other, the relationship we have with Christ, where we're like, all right, we're going to pray this out. We're going to pray this out right now. I'm going to pray over you. And they're kind of like, oh, fine. But they know, and like, we'll pray it out. And then 5 minutes later, they're better and they're coming up, giving you a hug. And you're like, man, I'm sorry for getting angry. I don't know why I was angry. And we're like, oh, cool. It's working. All right, cool.
Yeah.
And I think over the years, talking about the roles and just finishing that up, really something Melissa said the other day, my prayer this year has been to be the provider for my family. And I remember like being frustrated with God a few months ago, 6 months ago, and being like, I just want to provide financially for the family so Melissa feels safe. And he's like, why do you think she feels unsafe? I'm like, well, because I don't have a job right now. And I brought it to Melissa, and she's like, and God said, like, she doesn't feel unsafe. And she was like, what are you talking about? I don't feel unsafe because of that. I'm like, you don't? And then she said to me the other night, right before we went to bed, like, you are a provider in, how I'm raising the kids and how I'm learning to hear from the Lord and doing all those things. You almost don't look at those things like, yeah, I know, but I just want an income or I just want resources. But I think that the things that we're instilling in our kids with their identity, with who they are, with, certain spiritual weapons that we're giving them is being a provider. I think God's opened my eyes to that. You've opened my eyes to that, of like, that is being a provider. Because I caught myself a lot of times, hundreds of times, people would say like, well, I'd be coaching the kids' sports teams during the day, and they'd be like, what do you do for work? And I was like, oh, well, I used to be a firefighter and I used to own a business, but I sold it, And they're like, yeah, but what are you doing now? And I didn't have an answer. I was like, coaching youth sports, but it's like, you want that thing to tell people, because I took a lot of pride in, saying I was a firefighter. It was a cool thing that people really, oh, really? What's the worst thing you've ever seen? I'm like, oh, got a cat out of a tree. But, but I think that is a cool thing that God's kind of done a work in my heart and in my life to say that wasn't my identity. There was a time where I was like, you don't understand, Melissa, like a firefighter isn't a job, like it's who I am. She's like, no, it's not. It's just a job. And I'm like, I don't think so. It's who I am. It's who God made me to be. I freaking loved being a firefighter. I loved everything. I loved the guys. I loved the station. I loved going into fires. I loved everything. I loved the fire department. But the one thing it didn't give me is time, time with the family. And I love that now. But I think just seeing going back to the question is just being able to see the kids grow in who they are, trying to help navigate that through their lives where maybe we didn't have that growing up. And I think, I think it's also a different age and time that we're growing up with information and the internet and, Chat GPT and all these things where, I think you're a little bit more aware, you're a little bit more able to kind of guide them and correct them. And I'll be honest, I mean, there's times, and I'm sure a lot of parents feel this way, is there's times where I ask myself, like, am I even doing a good job? And you're doing a good job, but there's times where you feel like you're missing out or, oh my goodness, they're already this age and I feel like I'm behind. And I heard a thing one time that talked about parenting is the only thing that you learn while you're doing it. It's not like you're like, all right, let's go fly this plane. I'll teach you how to fly it. Like, no, you have to go through hundreds of hours of training before you actually fly the plane. And this is just kind of, you are building it as you go and you're hoping that you do the best. Mm-hmm. But I think the biggest thing, sorry to keep rambling, but I think the biggest thing is that I've realized a friend of mine sent me a quote on Father's Day one time and I've never forgotten it. It said something to the effect of like, my dad never told me how to live. He lived and let me watch him do it. Mm-hmm. And I think for our kids, like, you don't tell them to, yeah, you could tell them, hey, treat people like this and do this, and this is what we believe, and this is who we are. But they see how you interact with people. They see how you interact with, a custodian or a server at a restaurant or whatever, and you treat them with respect. You treat them with kindness. And I always like shout out Lawson of like how kind he is like, he's the guy, like, if he ordered fish and they bring him a rack of ribs, he will not say a word. He'll just eat it and be like, no, it's fine. I don't want them to feel bad. Like, oh, this is great. I wanted ribs. This is probably what I needed. And I love that. I admire that so much about him because, it's just, I can learn from that. And that, I love that. So I think part of just raising the kids is just letting them see how you live your life mm-hmm. and how you don't get stressed in situations that should cause stress. And I think that rubs off on them a lot more than what you tell them.
Yeah. I think that for me, I have always come into this parenting, I don't even know, season of life where I was going to be honest. And I have shared everything with the kids.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
from an early age.
From a very early age.
So I'd be sitting there and you would be like, okay, well, telling them, and I'll be like, you're talking about that now? Okay, we're in it. And I'm here for it. I am here for it.
Yeah, you're good with that.
We've always said, we'll always be honest with you. Don't lie to us. Yeah. We'll always go to bat for you. And we've always said, we'll be honest with you, to the point where when the kids were young and they asked if certain figures are real in life, I don't know if kids are watching, seeing out there about Santa, but
yes.
Kids, and I would say, we'll tell you the truth if you want. And they say, all right, tell me. We'll tell them the truth.
Yeah, we're just very honest. I mean, they knew everything about our lives from a young age. Yeah. They understood it. But what we did was really share what God has done through those stages. Yeah. So it's almost like we prepared them in a way that would allow, like, this is a great life we're living, but it's because we've gone through such hardships and wanted something different. And in the great life that you think we're living in, we're sitting here praying in the morning, like, for you, mm-hmm. for your hearts, for protection, I will war and I will bat for you in every single way, spiritually and physically if I have to. But you also have to see the hard, you have to see, I shared the AC one time and instead of going in, you see Hudson praying over it. Well, let's go there first. Like, what is God telling you? That's the constant thing
and
that we always, and it works.
The AC stopped working. He said, all right, Hudson, pray over it. You have powerful prayers. And he's like, okay. He was like probably young, 6 or 7, 6, 7. Yeah. And he was like, prayed over it and it worked, but he saw it and it grew his faith and allowed them to believe that prayers work even from that early age.
And that was part of it. It was like teaching them, training them up in us doing it and us seeing it and us responding differently, or in our anger, because there was plenty of that too. It was like, my apology. Like, I was sorry. I'm sorry that I just did that. I responded in the wrong way. Like, will you forgive me? And I've had to repent before the Lord, but I'm repenting in front of you too, because I shouldn't have responded that way. However, what you did, let's learn from.
Yeah.
This is how. Let me teach you the why. Let me teach you how to do that. Now, it's not always perfect, and especially at night when I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
But in those moments, I do see God's grace, and I see that they are learning in lenses that are their own, but through the honesty and truth of who we are. Good and bad.
Yeah.
Okay, I have one more question.
Yeah.
Only one?
This
I
is
thought
great.
I could do this for hours.
You guys are doing great. Answer all my questions. So,
Write down some more.
this is well, this could take a little bit, but what is something you would tell someone that might be single or engaged or newly married or a couple years but not seasoned?
Yeah.
So, like, what would you, looking back, what are some things you would want to tell some of those type of groups of people? Because we do have so many different type of people where they're at. And so it could sit here and you could hear that and be envious and be like, I want that. Why am I not getting that? And or they don't know what to look for. Or they're tired of doing that. Or they're engaged and like, we haven't had any of these questions and they're scared or not. Or they're newly married and go, whoa,
Yeah.
what is this? What do we do?
Yeah.
What is something or some things you would say or to encourage those seasons?
I would suggest two things. One, you have to have an identity based around who God says you are, not who you believe you are. And the believing can be like the lies, the ways of doing life that you've only known to do. And knowing who you are in Christ is like this daughter or son of a king, of a father.
I was going to say the same thing.
And I think when you do have that positioning coming in, no matter if you're single or if you're engaged or if you're newly married, when you have that position, there's freedom of joy, there's freedom of love. Even as you're getting to know somebody, like there's things that I am not great at. And Nick's loved me through that because he knows who he is in the Lord. And I think get your heart right with God. It's your journey with him alone. In the end, when God speaks to you, he's going to speak only to you, right? And not together as a team. It's about you and your heart for him. So if you work on that relationship first and foremost, that's a foundation that will last generations to come. The second thing is surround yourself with people who love you, but will call out your crap too. Yeah. And speak truth, and they are sound minds, wisdom-filled, discerning, no judgment. Like there's people that we've walked through, we've had beautiful friendships, and that's something that we both love is just like surrounding ourselves with my family and putting all of you guys and your thoughts and your hearts and your words into our marriage and into our parenting and into ourselves individually. But then also like you need a body of believers that are walking in that same journey alongside you, a season that you're in, or maybe it's a role you carry, like you work at home or you work for somebody and you're out of the home. You might need that encouragement. You might need somebody. How do you do it? What kind of, lessons did you learn? What is God telling you? What is God teaching you in this? Like you need to have a community, a body of believers around you.
Yeah, I think a lot of that's similar to what I would say. I mean, I think if I was giving myself advice, my dating self, my engaged self, my young married self, I mean, if I could go back and say I would, and this sounds weird, I would say, but just mature faster, like mature sooner, because I think to an extent, maturity is a choice. It's a decision. I think people always know the decisions they make, and they wonder why they're not meeting the right person. Well, it's the person who says, oh yeah, my last 12 jobs fired me and it's all them. They didn't like me. Well, maybe it's something you got to change, And I wish I was one of those people. We know people, some of our siblings, some of our friends got engaged at 20, got married at 21, had kids. That's amazing. Like, I love that. I love those stories, because for me, like I want to see great grandkids, and I don't want to get married in my 40s and then have someone else, my kids get married in their 40s. I want to see all that. And I think I would just encourage people to mature faster. And part of that choice is, again, I was going to say the exact same thing, is knowing who you are. And I'll tell you now, like, 'cause there was a time where we kind of were learning identity and what it means. And everyone's identity is you are a daughter of the King. You are a son of the King, the one true King. That's it. That's all there is. And then on top of that, or I should say below that, there's purpose in your life. There's who you were made to be. What are your talents? Certain gifts that God's given me that other people don't have. Certain gifts that other people have that I don't, for sure. But I think when you know that Christ is at the center, if you're not dating anybody and you desire that, God has a perfect plan for your life. And my TED Talk for the last year and a half, 2 years is, I promise you, and even when I'm not seeing it now, and I'm probably giving myself advice, is I promise you, we talked about this earlier, God's plan for you is always better than your own plan, always. And I always talk about it. I remember we had talked about it. It was like a Friday night. And we're like, hey, let's go to like this place to get like these ice cream sundaes or whatever that are like phenomenal. They're huge, you know? And like, all right. So we like went out and we're going to tell the kids. The kids are like, hey, can we go get McFlurries? We're like, McFlurry? No, get in the car. And they're like, well, we want McFlurries. I'm like, don't worry about McFlurries. McFlurries are terrible. We're about to go. And we didn't tell them. We surprised them. But it was like kind of that, God kind of revealed that to me, is like, this is my plan for you, is like, you want something that you think is good, that you think is great. I have such a better plan. And that's part of our story too, is we were both set to go to different colleges. I kind of mentioned a little bit. We were both set to go to completely different colleges than we did. And very last minute, we both kind of pivoted for various reasons. And we met there. So you never know where God's taking you on that. And you might think a shut door or a turn in the road is a problem when it's leading you to exactly where God has you. And I just think, you know, for people who are in it, if you're young married, enjoy it, because it's the only time that you'll get before you have kids. And if you have kids and they're young, man, enjoy it. I remember a friend of ours gave us advice as she was holding our daughter, and she couldn't crawl yet. She was a newborn, basically. I was like, oh man, I can't wait till she starts crawling. That'll be so cool. And she was like, nope, soak it up. Like, 'cause once they start crawling, you never go back to the stage. And once they start walking, they never crawl. And it's awesome to see their development. It's awesome to see them becoming the people that God made them to be, and just being able to have real conversations with the kids now, but also just enjoy it. If your kids are little, enjoy it. I know you might be in it struggling, and the diapers and the tantrums and all that stuff, but enjoy it because it flies by.
Yeah, they say you never know the last time you're going to hold your kid.
That's right. We talk about that too. If the kids try to do something, or like, hey, like, you know, this might be the last time he or she asks us to do this, so let's do it, you know? And the longer you can hold on to that,
Just
the better,
having
I
those
think.
moments to
Yeah, for
remind
sure.
yourself that, you know, it's easy to be frustrated in certain seasons, but there's more frustration still coming ahead with anything, but there's joy to be had, because there's a reason why God, you know, says don't worry about tomorrow.
Yeah.
To like enjoy those moments, enjoy those days, even if they're hard.
Find
Because
joy in them.
Find joy in them instead of look at the hard, look at the blessing. And I say that all the time, you know, our kids are rambunctious. They are spirited. But there's sometimes I'm just like, look at them, I'm like, man, you're such a blessing. Like, I just think it's so cool that God chose, you know, you to be on this earth. And then I get to be a part of it for you. And it's such a redeeming thing to have kids, I believe. It just shows so much more of your relationship with the Lord, how much patience the Lord has for us. Because that's the one thing that having kids taught me more about God's love than anything else. And coming from broken homes, it's easy to not understand that. And then you have it, and you want to be different from your parents, but then you're like, whoa, this is deeper. This isn't just that. This is deeper. Yeah. This is changing my life and my relationship with the Lord, and this is going to then pour into them too. Yeah. So
I love that.
Yeah, I love that. We have a friend who was a pastor, did our premarital counseling, and he said, you know, you'll never know really kind of like what you grew up with your parents' divorce and stuff, and with like the love of Christ until you have kids, you have kids of your own, because then you really do learn unconditional love. And, you know, about like the spirited, rambunctious kids, like I love that. And because like our kids were very like busy and everything, but it's like their curiosity. And, you know, you see certain people's kids, and God made everyone different, perfect in his image. And I get that. There's some kids who are just like, I don't know, like they're just sitting there and they don't really, you know, whatever. And it's like, man, I want kids who want to get outside. And they want to be kids, and they want to explore, and they want to, you know, check things out, and they want to be a part of something, you know. And I think that that's awesome, the way that God's made all of our kids. And I'm super grateful for that.
I always say I'd rather pull them back than push them
Yeah,
forward.
100%.
So
I
true.
talk about that
We
all the
never
time.
have to push our kids to do anything. Already, I'm like pulling them back from death and and life. So I said, as hard as that is, I'm so happy I get to experience them wanting to do it on their own and not me having to want it for them to do it on their
100%.
own. Well, Nick, what a joy! This was fun. Did you have fun?
I wanted
could
it to
keep
go way
talking all
longer.
the time.
I was hoping for longer. I was like,
This
man,
is
Let's
what
have you
this
on
is what
next
the Holy
time.
Spirit told me today. We were sitting there with him, and I was like, Holy Spirit, I'm going to write down anything that you want me to ask. And that's why
It's perfect.
it was cool, because there's not some of these things I know it was straight from God, because
Yeah.
I did not even plan to ask you that. And then it kind of even already went that way. So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing your hearts, being open, and not hiding things, because I do think so many people, we all go through very similar things. And the worst thing is when the enemy wants to isolate people
Yeah.
and say you're alone, or say you're the one that feels these feelings, or even sharing things of that, in the church might seem like, oh, I'm going to give judgment. But you know what? God already knows it.
Yeah.
You've already given it, and you are walking in freedom. And that's the message, is that your identity is found in him, and
Yeah.
it does not matter what anyone else says about that.
right.
you
Yeah,
know?
and I would encourage people to do that. Is really, again, seeking a relationship with the Lord is, and I heard this thing the other day, is like, everyone thinks God wants 100% obedience and the devil wants 100% disobedience. And he said the devil wants 99% of your obedience. He wants he wants to kind of whisper those lies to you. Did God really say? And I think in that isolation, like you talked about, people believe certain things where it's like, if you can really grab hold of those things, say, is this truth or is this a lie? And I heard this thing the other day. Imagine, like, in the Garden of Eden, the serpent said to Eve, like, did God really say you couldn't eat from it? And he's like, you're right, but I don't know. I walk with him every day. I'm going to walk with him in 2 hours. I'm going to go bring it to God, and I'll come back and talk to you. She comes and talks to God and says, is that? And he's like, no, don't eat from it. Okay, hey, you're wrong. That's just a lie, and, get out of the garden. Think about how that could have been. It's like, there's so many times where, like, I brought things to God, and I'm like, God, I feel like I'm drowning. And he's like, are you really drowning? I'm like, no. And then he's like, or I'd be like, feel like I'm this. And he's like, is that really true when you look around? I'm like, no, that's not true at all. And he's like, so don't believe those lies. And I think that's just the way the enemy works, is just trying to get us to believe a lie. And if you can just bring that back to God every single time and hear what he says, you're going to be in such a better place.
Yeah, he doesn't want you to seek him and ask God,
Right.
but how much does his word say? Just seek me.
Just seek
come
me.
to me.
Be still.
It's like, come to me. I
Yeah.
will have everything in.
He desires it.
So good.
Right.
Well, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for having us.
As usual, we don't have a sign off. Do you want to start one?
Like, comment, subscribe. Comment below if you want to see more little Nikki.
Little Nikki.
I'll be on the comment board commenting below that we need to see more of me. But, if the subscribers want it, then
Yeah,
we'll give the people what
give
they
the
want.
people what they want. No, it's been really fun and really easy, and that's how the beauty of the Lord works. So,
Well, if you made it this far, I appreciate you watching. Honestly, I appreciate watching this far. And
continues on.
thank you for
We're-
Esther's table.
Yeah, we're landing the plane. Have a great day. Bye. It's going to be your new thing to never go off well.
I think that's the beauty of it.